There comes a moment in life when you realize something uncomfortable. Some people only call when they need something. Some people create more stress than support. And some relationships survive only because you've been carrying them. For many Gen Xers, that realization changed everything. They stopped chasing approval, stopped explaining themselves, stopped trying to save relationships that clearly weren't healthy. And in the process, they discovered something they hadn't felt in a long time: peace. Today we're talking about the 6 reasons Gen Xers started cutting people off, and why so many say it's one of the best decisions they ever made. And if you're part of Gen X yourself, there's a good chance several of these will feel very familiar. Let's start with reason number 6. They got tired of one-sided relationships. One of the hardest lessons many Gen Xers learned was that not every relationship is balanced. For years, they were the reliable friend, the dependable sibling, the helpful coworker, the person everyone called when they needed support. Need a favor? Call them. Need advice? Call them. Need help moving? Call them. Need someone to listen? Call them. And for a long time, they were happy to help. The problem was that many eventually noticed something. The support rarely flowed in both directions. When they needed help, people disappeared. When they faced challenges, certain friends suddenly became unavailable. When life became difficult, the people they had supported for years often weren't there. That realization can be painful because it forces you to ask whether some relationships were genuine connections or simply conveniences for other people. Over time, many Gen Xers stopped investing energy into relationships that felt completely one-sided, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because eventually, constantly giving while receiving very little in return becomes exhausting. Now let's move to reason number 5. They value peace more than popularity. This is one of the biggest shifts that happens with age. When people are younger, popularity often feels important. Being included, being liked, being invited, being accepted. Many people spend years chasing social approval without even realizing it. But something changes as Gen X gets older. They begin realizing that popularity often comes with a price: drama, obligations, conflicts, competition, emotional exhaustion. And many eventually decide the price isn't worth paying. They stop attending events they don't enjoy. They stop participating in gossip. They stop maintaining relationships that constantly create stress. And they become much more protective of their peace. This doesn't mean they stop caring about people. It simply means they stop sacrificing their emotional well-being for social acceptance. Because once you've experienced genuine peace, it's hard to go back. Many Gen Xers discovered that a small circle of trustworthy people feels far better than a large circle filled with drama. And once they learned that lesson, their social lives changed dramatically. Now let's talk about reason number 4. Life became too short for fake relationships. This realization often arrives quietly. Maybe a friend passes away. Maybe a health scare changes perspective. Maybe years simply go by faster than expected. Whatever triggers it, many Gen Xers reach a point where they become acutely aware of time. And when that happens, tolerance for fake relationships tends to disappear. Small talk becomes less interesting. Pretending becomes exhausting. Superficial friendships lose their appeal. Because when you realize life is finite, authenticity suddenly becomes incredibly valuable. People begin wanting deeper conversations, more honesty, more sincerity, less performance, less pretending, less social theater. Many Gen Xers spent years maintaining relationships simply because they felt obligated. Maybe it was an old friendship that no longer felt meaningful. Maybe it was a social connection based entirely on history rather than genuine compatibility. But eventually, many asked themselves a simple question: if I met this person today, would I choose to build a friendship with them? And sometimes the answer was no. That's when many relationships quietly faded away, not because anyone did something terrible, but because authenticity became more important than obligation. Now let's move to reason number 3. They experienced too much betrayal. This is one of the deepest reasons behind the shift, because betrayal changes people.
Not always dramatically, but permanently. Many Gen Xers have lived through enough experiences to understand that trust is fragile. Maybe it was a friend who spread private information, a family member who only showed up when they needed something, a business partner who wasn't honest, a coworker who took credit for their work, or someone they deeply cared about who completely let them down. The details vary from person to person, but the lesson is often the same. Not everyone who smiles at you has your best interests at heart. And after enough disappointments, people become more careful about who they allow into their lives. This doesn't mean Gen Xers stopped believing in people entirely. It means they became more selective. They stopped giving unlimited access to everyone. They paid closer attention to actions instead of words. And they became much more comfortable walking away from relationships that repeatedly damaged their trust. Because one thing many Gen Xers learned is that betrayal hurts far more when you ignore the warning signs. So, rather than constantly giving people second, third, fourth, and fifth chances, many started protecting themselves earlier. And that leads directly into reason number 2. They stopped being people pleasers. For many Gen Xers, this may have been one of the most liberating changes of all. For years, they tried to keep everyone happy. They avoided conflict. They said yes when they wanted to say no. They carried responsibilities that didn't belong to them. They worried about disappointing people. And they often placed other people's comfort ahead of their own well-being. At first, it felt like kindness, and sometimes it was. But over time, many realized something important. Constant people-pleasing comes with a cost. It creates resentment. It creates exhaustion, and it slowly teaches people that your needs always come last. Many Gen Xers reached a point where they simply couldn't do it anymore. Not because they became selfish, but because they became honest. They started saying no. They started setting boundaries. They stopped explaining every decision. They stopped feeling guilty for protecting their time. And interestingly, some people didn't like this change. Certain friends became upset, certain family members became frustrated, some relationships even ended. But that reaction often revealed something important. The people who benefited most from weak boundaries are usually the ones who complain when boundaries become stronger. That's a lesson many Gen Xers learned firsthand. Healthy relationships respect limits. Unhealthy relationships often resist them. And once Gen X discovered the power of boundaries, many never looked back.
Now we've reached the number one reason Gen X cut everyone off. They finally chose themselves. That might sound selfish at first, but for many Gen Xers, it was actually the healthiest thing they ever did. Because for decades, they had been choosing everyone else. Their employers, their children, their spouses, their families, their friends, their communities, their obligations, their responsibilities. And somewhere along the way, many Gen Xers lost sight of themselves. Their own happiness became secondary. Their own needs became optional. Their own peace became negotiable. Then something changed. Maybe it happened after a major life event, a divorce, a health scare, the loss of a loved one, retirement. Or maybe it happened gradually. But eventually, many Gen Xers realized something powerful. Nobody was going to prioritize their well-being for them. If they wanted peace, they had to protect it. If they wanted happiness, they had to pursue it. If they wanted healthy relationships, they had to demand them. And if certain people couldn't respect that, those people didn't need unlimited access to their lives. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about bitterness. And it wasn't about proving a point. It was about self-respect. For the first time in years, many Gen Xers gave themselves permission to ask a simple question. What do I actually want? Not what everyone expects, not what everyone demands, not what keeps everyone comfortable. What do I want? And for many, the answer led to significant changes. Smaller social circles, fewer obligations, stronger boundaries, more solitude, more authenticity, more peace, and perhaps most importantly, more emotional freedom. Because when you stop living for approval, something remarkable happens. You become free. Free from constantly managing other people's opinions, free from relationships built on guilt,
free from expectations that never truly served you. And that freedom feels incredibly valuable, especially after spending years carrying emotional weight that was never yours to begin with. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more life lessons, Gen X insights, and personal growth content. And let me know in the comments, which of these 6 reasons do you think explains Gen X the best?